Okay, imagine this. A world where pregnancy and childbirth, the way we've done it for all of human history, just becomes optional. That's the huge idea behind something called EctoLife. It's a concept for a facility that could grow babies completely outside the human body. So let's dive in and really break down what that future might actually look like.
So you've got to be thinking, why would anyone even come up with something so radical? Look, this whole concept isn't just some wild science fiction dream. It's actually being presented as a potential answer to some very real, very current problems we're facing around the world.
And one of the biggest problems on that list? Severe population decline. I mean, this is a massive issue for a lot of developed nations right now. The people behind this concept are basically positioning EctoLife as a potential large-scale way to turn that whole trend around.
But it's not just about population numbers, right? The idea is also being pitched as a solution for couples who are struggling with infertility, or for women who've had to have their uterus removed because of cancer or other complications. And think about this. It's also being sold as a way to completely get rid of things like premature births and C-sections. It's framed as this alternative that just sidesteps a lot of the physical risks of a traditional pregnancy.
Okay, so what does a place like this actually look like? Well, don't picture some small boutique clinic. The vision here is for something on an almost unimaginable industrial scale.
And to really wrap your head around just how ambitious this is, you gotta look at the numbers. The concept imagines a single facility with 75, that's right, 75 highly equipped labs.
And then inside each of those labs, you'd find up to 400 individual growth pods. These are the artificial wombs themselves.
Which brings the total capacity of just one of these buildings to 30,000 lab-grown babies a year. That number is just staggering, and it completely reframes the whole idea of reproduction into this massive centralized process.
And how do you power something this huge? Well, the concept is pretty clear on that. The whole facility would run on clean, renewable energy, a mix of solar and wind power, to try and keep things sustainable.
All right, so we've seen the big picture, the massive scale of the facility. But now let's zoom right into its core, the individual growth pod. What is actually going on inside one of these things?
So each pod is basically engineered to perfectly copy the conditions inside a mother's uterus. It uses special materials to make sure everything is sterile and infection-free. And on top of all that, you've got an AI-based system that's constantly monitoring everything, all the vital signs, physical features, and it's designed to flag any potential genetic abnormalities right away.
So the big question is, how does the baby actually stay alive and grow in there? The whole life support system is built around something called bioreactors. The easiest way to think of them is like the pod's engine. They provide everything the baby needs, and they get rid of everything it doesn't.
And there are actually two of these bioreactors, and they have two very different but connected jobs. The first one is basically the supply line. It pumps in a perfectly tailored mix of nutrients, oxygen, hormones, you name it. The second one? That's the waste management system. It gets all the waste products out of the pod.
Now, here's where it gets really clever. The two systems work together to create this closed, sustainable loop. So nutrients go in through an artificial umbilical cord. The baby develops, creates waste, and that waste gets sent over to the second bioreactor. And in there, special enzymes actually recycle that waste back into fresh nutrients. It's basically its own little self-contained ecosystem.
Okay, but let's be real. A huge question with a system like this has to be, what about the human connection? That bond between a parent and child that starts during pregnancy? Well, the EctoLife concept actually proposes a whole bunch of tech to try and solve for that.
For starters, parents would get a special app on their phone. And this is more than just checking in. We're talking a high-res live feed of the baby 24/7. You could track vital signs in real time, and it would even create one of those cool time-lapse videos of their growth that you could share. You could also make custom playlists of music, or even record your own voice to play for them inside the pod.
But it goes way beyond just an app. This is where the immersive tech kicks in. The concept includes a 360-degree camera inside the pod. So a parent could put on a VR headset and, in theory, see and hear the world from their baby's perspective. Wild, right?
And to get that physical connection, there's even a proposal for a wireless haptic suit. This suit would supposedly let parents actually feel the baby's kicks in real time. The whole idea is to try and replicate that physical bond of pregnancy, even if you're miles away.
All right, this is where things get, well, this is probably the most debated and futuristic part of the whole concept. The source material calls it the elite package. And this is where we move beyond just replicating pregnancy and start talking about actively shaping the baby.
So, according to the concept, this package would start with IVF, but with a twist. It would involve selecting what's described as the most viable and genetically superior embryo before it even goes into the growth pod.
And the tool they propose to do this with is CRISPR-Cas9. Now, this is a real gene editing tool that exists today. In the EctoLife concept, it would be used to customize the embryo. We're talking about editing from a huge range of over 300 different genes.
So, what could you actually change? The proposal lays out a whole menu of customizable traits. You could change eye color, hair color, skin tone. You could even engineer for physical strength, height, and yes, even level of intelligence. On top of that, it also includes the ability to fix any inherited genetic diseases, stopping them from being passed down.
Okay, so after 9 months in this super high-tech, controlled environment, what about the big moment? How does the birth actually happen?
Well, the way the source material describes it is a million miles away from traditional childbirth. It's pitched as this smooth, convenient, and completely painless process. The amniotic fluid drains from the pod, and then you just take your baby out, all at the push of a button.
So yeah, from solving infertility all the way to custom designing your own child, this concept touches on some huge technological and ethical questions. And the source material itself ends with a really powerful one. Is this reinventing evolution? It's a seriously provocative thought, and it perfectly sums up the enormous potential and the profound questions a technology like EctoLife would bring to our world.